Okay, thank you everyone for joining us for our Trade and Exports live Q&A here at Illinois Soybean Association. I will begin by letting you all know that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the Illinois Soybean Association YouTube shortly after. So we will go ahead and get started here. Thank you all. I would also like to remind everyone that we will be holding questions until the end. If you do have any questions for the participants, please drop them in the chat box below and we will get to those shortly. Okay, so obviously the entire portion of this webinar is going to be focused on trade and exports. And here in the state of Illinois, we are located in a prime location for trade and exports to be our #1. We are once again very proud to be holding the titles of the #1 producer of soybeans in the US. And of those produced acres, we export 60%. And so exports is very important to our Illinois farmers, as you all know. And so that's why it became such a focus of mine as Trade and Exports Manager here at Illinois Soybean Association to make sure that our farmers and our exporters know exactly where our soybeans are going on their journey to their final destinations. And so over the past several years, our goal has been to diversify our markets and share that journey with our farmer audience. And so without further ado, I would like to officially make the launch of our Trade and Exports map here at the Illinois Soybean Association on our virtual platform. So here you can see the outline for our Trade and Exports map. And I will link this to our website here. And you will find more information on the Illinois Soybean Association website. And here is the Trade and Exports map. It may look very familiar. It was based off of the Google Maps, which many people are familiar with. And you will see here directly in the state of Illinois 4 different pinpoints. These pinpoints are unique to the state of Illinois. As you can see on the left, they are all highlighting different resources that the state of Illinois has. As I mentioned before, the state of Illinois is very unique in its proximity to the Illinois River, the Mississippi River, and the railways. And so Northern Illinois, we focus on the container market, which many of our Northern Illinois farmers utilize to diversify their crops. Central Illinois, here you see the Illinois crushing and processing, which not only affects Central Illinois, but across that entire belt and Midwest region. As we head south, Lock and Dam 25 has been a great opportunity for us as we talk about infrastructure and transportation. So another location that we really like to highlight. And lastly, in Illinois, we like to highlight the Ag Coast, otherwise known as the St. Louis region for export facilities. And so as you click on each one of these areas, you will see it toggles into a new web page to your left. And this is very user-friendly and was a huge goal of ours to make this a hub of information as farmers are in the field and interacting with other farmer colleagues or their local organizations explaining why the Illinois soybean works so hard in the trade space. They can have this information to share amongst themselves. Meanwhile, I host a lot of trade visits to the state of Illinois, and so it's very helpful to have this information right here in the palm of our hands to be able to share with our international counterparts and what the great work that Illinois Soy is doing to make sure that those trade and exports continue, as well as any other educational material that they may find helpful. So you can see here at the bottom, there's a virtual farm tour and additional links that are sent that can be linked to this website here. So we're very impressed with how this has turned out in just the first year. And as you can imagine, there are endless opportunities that we can continue to put on this interface. And so as we head south, you'll see the Port of New Orleans, which we all know trade out of the state of Illinois would not occur if it was not for this southern region in New Orleans. And so it only expands much more, as you can see here with all of the different port opportunities in New Orleans. And something that is very interesting and what we were very focused on when creating this map was bringing this opportunity to farmers that may not have the chance to go to New Orleans to visit these different ports. And so if you have the opportunity to watch this short 1-minute video, it really makes you feel like you're at the port and is very interactive and user-friendly. So now the Trade and Exports Interactive project does not stop there. This was a two-phased opportunity, like we had mentioned, and we really wanted it to be inclusive of both of our farmer audience as well as our buyer group. And so this portion, what we like to call the World Tour, an extension of our We've Been There campaign, is for our buyer audience. We really wanted to make something that was digestible for our exporters and anyone that was traveling to the United States for on-farm farm visits. And we actually created an in-person physical resource that we will share with that audience. And four of our main points that we like to communicate in trade and exports here at Illinois Soy is efficiency, reliability, sustainability, and consistency. All four things that the state of Illinois is unique in having. And so this format is also available in an electronic version that we're very happy to share with you all today as well. And that resource, once again, can be found at Illinois Soybean Association's website. And I will just give a quick view of what that looks like for you all as you head to illsoy.org. As you head on the website, if you launch each one of these packets, showcases and introduces the Illinois Soybean Association, as well as all the work that we are doing in the trade industry. Once again, efficient transportation, thanks to the river system. And we'll have some really good information coming from different statistical resources, as well as our own board members. This one here is focusing on Mark Reed. Once again, this platform is used mostly for our buyer audiences, and having that connection to our Illinois farmers is so important. So being able to have their messaging in there has been really helpful. And without further ado, that is just a little bit of backstory on the projects that we've been doing here at Illinois Soy. And we're very happy to have launched this interactive map. And we hope that you all will find it very helpful as you're in the countryside working with different colleagues and representatives of the soybean industry. And it's just the beginning. Like I said, there's so many opportunities to continue building this map, not only throughout the state of Illinois, but creating a resource globally in transportation systems and specialty opportunities. So we're looking forward to the expansion of that project and would love to hear your feedback. So I will now introduce our first guest speaker, Scott Gaffner, who is the committee chairman of the Market Development Committee here at Illinois Soybean Association. He raises corn and soybeans on his farming operation in Greenville, Illinois, and represents interests with WISH, USSEC, and USSEC as the Illinois Soybean Association representative. So Scott, please take it away from here and let me know when you would like to move forward.
All right, thank you so much, Eileen. What a great opportunity we have at this point in time. It's so amazing how Eileen's done a great job on enabling all of us to have at our fingertips all the resources we need to advocate for soybeans in Illinois. And as the #1 soybean producing state, that's such an integral part of what we need to have. So thanks, Eileen and Todd and Jenna, for all your hard work in that area. And we really appreciate that. I want to introduce myself to you a little bit. So I come from a Centennial farm background. My dad and his parents were all from the farm. We used to have a dairy farm, and working on that dairy farm and only having like 2 vacations my whole life, I kind of thought, you know what, there's got to be a better life than that. And so I actually went the route of working for the Illinois State Police for about 29 years before I retired. But I still had my farm on the side, but my brother had come back to the farm before that. So I look at him kind of like, we have a unique opportunity here. So he's kind of like the chief operating officer of the farm. He's in charge of all the operations. And I look at myself as like the chief advocator in a sense. And of course, our dad, you know, he kind of oversees both of us as well. And so many of you may know my dad. He was on the soybean board for many years. And so we've been advocating for soybean for quite a while. And we have a passion for that. And I've been able to take that on and allowed to be one of the primary things that I can do for our 43,000 soybean farmers as well. And so I appreciate you allowing me to have this opportunity. And so as we dive into some of the things we're looking at as the Market Development Committee, Eileen, if you want to go to that next slide, we are very happy to be able to have a a state that we have, because being the #1 soybean state, it's essential that we are identifying global markets that has opportunities for growth. One thing we want to be very careful of, and these points right here just kind of lead us through all the things that we are looking at as the market development. It's the old saying is we don't want to keep our eggs in one basket. We want to be diversified. And part of that diversification is ensuring that we as representatives for the Illinois soybean farmers have looked to see what opportunities are available out there in the world. And Eileen briefly hit on it too. I mean, 60% of our soybeans are exported. So it's important that we have opportunities other than maybe just one primary market to go to. And if you're not familiar with who that primary market is, the primary market right now is China. And so we've had some unique challenges with China. We've seen that over the last few years. And we've recently even had some encounters that have put some tensions with us. And so we always want to have that opportunity to have other buyers that are available, that are ready to use our soybeans. And we are learning that there are many people, many countries that would love to consume our soybeans. And we're very proud of that. One of the things we try to do, and this is a partnership that we have with USSEC, and that's to build preferences for Illinois soybeans within the international market. And part of the ways that we can do that is, and USSEC's done a great job of this in the Soy Excellence Centers, and I know Lindsey's going to probably talk about those in a little bit too. But this is an opportunity to let people know how to best utilize our soybeans for whether it's poultry production or whether it's aquaculture, just feed management. So what a neat opportunity that we were able to experience while we were over in Egypt. And that's a picture of myself and Chairman Pitstick as we were looking at an aquaculture facility in Egypt. And their consumers, the third largest consumer of our soybeans. And so when we looked at these other markets, we have great opportunities with buyers within that industry, within the aquaculture, within the poultry. And we're excited to continue to promote our soybeans and deliver more there to them. And one of the things that really sets us apart, and as we look at that, is we have, and Eileen touched on it briefly too, we have a strength that many states don't have. We have the railways, the waterways, and the roadways to deliver our soybeans. And that allows us to deliver these soybeans in a consistent and reliable way. And as I was talking to some buyers while we were in Egypt, they indicated that they can get soybeans from other locations. And sometimes it even maybe a little bit cheaper than our soybeans from the United States. But what set us apart was when they ordered those soybeans, they knew that they would be at their facility when they needed those soybeans. And so this is why it's important that we make sure that we let people know about those strengths that we have. And then the last thing on this list here, it talks about that we have a unique opportunity. Being in the state of Illinois, we are a very diverse state from the top to the bottom. The farther you go north, of course, it gets to be more of a metropolitan area, but it also holds a lot of personnel such as the consulates. And I think we may hear a little bit more about that later on as well. But for us to be able to utilize an asset such as the consulates to advocate for U.S. soybeans, to explain to them how we can bring that commodity into their area and be a positive feed source, protein source for them is such a great thing that we can take advantage of. And I know Eileen's going to be working on that throughout this year to develop these relationships with the consulate in Chicago. So we're very excited to hear about that. And if we want to go to the next slide, I think this slide is going to show us the opportunity that we have because of the exporting the 60% soybeans from Illinois. Now I know we don't have as large of we're not as large of a consumer in those soybeans being consumed here in home because we don't have the livestock that some of the other states have. But this provides us that unique opportunity to deliver them to other global markets. So we're excited to be able to continue to explore that ability. And then on the next slide, Eileen. And so this right on the slide, it shows some of the locations that and the things that we've been able to do. And I talked about our infrastructure, I talked about our waterways, and I talked about how important that is. And so within the Illinois Soybean Association, one of the ways that we are helping promote these things with your checkoff dollars are we're advocating at Washington, D.C. We're advocating for the waterway bill. We're advocating for all the infrastructure bills that we can continue to be the #1 soybean producing state that can also deliver those soybeans where they need to go. And so that's why it's so important that we are working with our legislators and ensuring that we have waterways that can get them down to the Port of New Orleans that Eileen just talked about a while ago. One of the pictures you see there on the top right is tilapia farm. That was in Colombia, and we visit that, and the soy excellence centers had the pond raceway systems that are in there that help those fish to grow faster and to consume more of our soybeans. So that's a great partnership we have with them. And then the bottom left picture shows us as we were in Egypt, and all those soybeans that you're looking at in that picture are U.S. soybeans. Probably a good portion of those are from Illinois here too, because we export 60%. And then the bottom right picture is our Centennial Family Farm location. And this was a German influencer that came to our farm to talk to my brother, myself, and my mom and dad. And so we were happy to host them. But we want to, just like Eileen reiterated, we want to bring as many people to see our farms in Illinois as we can. But for those who cannot see our farms, Eileen has developed a great opportunity to really take your computer, take your device, and look at what Illinois has to offer in a remote manner, and really be hopefully intrigued, and gives you the opportunity to learn more about what we have to offer. So we really appreciate that. And I think on the next slide, it may just have some things about how to contact me if you want to. So any point in time, you have any questions about what we can do, we're always looking for different opportunities within the global market. We're looking ahead to see where can we be next, to be ready. We're not trying to be reactionary, we're trying to be proactive. Where can we be? Where can we move that pile of soybeans so that we can make our 43,000 soybean farmers more profitable in what they do? So thank you, Eileen, and for giving me the opportunity to speak about this, and look forward to any questions anyone may have at the end.
Thank you, Scott. That was well said, and a great explanation on how our farmers can be involved as we talk about the trade and exports. And we're always happy to see farmers hosting our international buyers on their farms, so that those buyers have a true understanding of where their soybeans are coming from. And so without further ado, I would like to invite our next panelist here to the screen, who is Rachel Peabody, our Director of Communications here at ISA. She leads the internal and external communications, association branding, and serves as the editor-in-chief of our ISA publication, Field and Bean. So Rachel, please take it away.
Yes, thanks, Eileen, for inviting me to join in on this today. Market development and our trade and export work. It's some of our best and most rich stories that we have to tell for our organization. And so I work really closely with Eileen and Todd and Jenna and their market development team on a daily basis to get content out to farmers, to let them know what we're doing with their checkoff investments. And so my portion of the presentation, I'm going to walk you through some of the different communications tactics that we use to get that great messaging out to farmers. Go ahead. So ISA, we're extremely proud of the fact that, we've got great export markets around the globe. We've got great farmers growing soybeans around the country. And there's a lot to be proud of here. And there's a lot of great stories that we like to tell because of that. We also know that it's important for us to connect with Illinois farmers so that they realize that this trade and export and market development work that we're doing, that impacts their profitability. That's customers that we're talking to. Those are people who are buying their soybeans, and we're sending them around the world. And so it's really important from a checkoff perspective that this is a main message that we get out to farmers, to let them know that we are their partner, we're investing in their success, and we're looking for these rich markets around the globe that have an appetite for soybeans, and where there's a lot of opportunity for Illinois soy in particular to build new relationships there and develop a great preference for soy, and particularly soy from Illinois. Okay. Some of the things that we do currently to work with Eileen and her team to get out the messages on all of the different touch points that we've got around the world. And one is an in-house trade blog that we have called Bean There. As you know, Illinois soybeans go around the globe, and that's a really fun story to tell. So Bean There tells all the different ways that Illinois soybeans have in fact been there. And so we like to add a lot of different chapters to this story through our in-house blog. We follow Eileen and her team and their travels around the country, around the world through this platform. And it's just a great way for farmers to see all the different trade and market opportunities that are happening at ISA on a daily basis, and keep up to date on what's happening and seeing that unfold in real time. We also provide a lot of support to our different trade teams and trade missions. Scott just talked a lot about what we just did in Egypt. Being able to have communication support in those countries while those visits are happening, capturing content while we're there, being able to take that and, feed it back to, social channels while we were there. We were live on our social media channels while we were in Egypt, and farmers were able to interact with that content, ask us questions while we were actually in the country and with those buyers of Illinois soybeans. And so that was a really cool channel and a really cool opportunity for us. Other things that we do to support trade teams and trade missions, if there's any talking points needed, if there's any particular topics that our customers want to talk about while we're in country, we're prepared to do that. As Eileen said, this trade and interactive trade and export map, that's an asset now that we can roll out and use with those groups to tell them more about Illinois soybeans too in those meetings while we're there in country. So there's a lot of different things that we can do to support trade teams and trade missions from a communication support while we're on the ground. Back at ISA, we've got a lot of different channels that we plug this content into. You'll read about our trade and export work frequently in Illinois Field and Bean magazine. We tend to have at least an issue or two every year that seems very heavily dedicated to the work that this team is doing and the different export markets that these beans are going to around the world. I know in particular, we're working on a special issue for this upcoming fall to detail just that, the different trade missions that have been going on, and to actually share stories back to Illinois farmers from the mouths of the buyers of the soybeans that were of the buyers of our soybeans. And so to be able to give Illinois farmers and our Illinois Field and Bean readers that access, that's something that's really important to us too, and something we're really excited about. We've also talked about trade and exports and our different trade missions and initiatives quite a bit on our ISA podcast. So we have an ISA podcast called By Association. And so I would encourage anybody, especially our farmer audience, to tune in there. This is where we talk about the different ways your checkoff investments are going back to work for you. So of course, trade and exports and the market development work is a really key important story that we tell through our in-house podcast. As I said, we're also very heavily active on social media. Our trade and export team gives us a lot of good content and some fun things that we can share there. We get updates out to farmers weekly through a Fast 5 newsletter. You can go to illsoy.org if you don't receive that Thursday newsletter and get added to the list. But that's where you'll also see, the things that are really happening that week in real time. So again, if there's new content for the Bean There blog, if there's a trade mission that just happened, our Fast 5 newsletter will be the first place to tell you about that. And so I encourage you to follow that if you're not already. Media, we work a lot with media. And so I think we've got a couple actually on this call today, and they're probably very well versed in our monthly media advisory that goes out the first week of every month. We try to include a trade and export topic monthly, if not every other month, to really just kind of keep, there's so many good stories to tell there, whether it's talking about buyers that we're working, trade teams that our Illinois farmers are hosting, different conferences that Eileen and her team are going to, where they're making these valuable connections and valuable relationships that then we can then build upon. In our most recent media advisory that just went out, we talked about our new trade and export map tool. And so that's a way that we try to get more information out to Illinois farmers at any time, is through our great media partners to let them know that these resources are available for them to check out and from their checkoff. I also want to give a preview into some of the things that we're thinking about for the next fiscal year. So go ahead. Okay. So as I said, I work very closely with Eileen, and we have a ton of fun thinking up different ways that we can inform farmers about their market development investments and what trade and export communications that we've got. And we're always thinking of new ways to get that information out to our farmers in ways that it's easy to digest and that really sticks with you. So our social media channels have really proven to be a great outlet for us to get those real-time updates out to farmers. So you'll definitely see more from us in the future on our social media channels, particularly, as I said, when we're in country and we're on the ground in some of those opportunities, doing some of those live reporting features on social media while we're there, capturing that really authentic content, getting our buyers on an Instagram, video, sharing something like that quickly to our stories, just really providing that behind the scenes access. You'll see a lot more of that authentic content coming from us on our social channels in the future. Another thing that we really try to do is really share the why behind each stop and site visit and meeting that we're having when we're in these countries or when we're doing our trade missions, and really help paint the picture for farmers of, when we're in country, why are we meeting with the groups that we are, and what's the conversations that we're having? We want Illinois farmers to feel like they're around that table with us and participating in that trade mission, because after all, they're part of this story. It's their soybeans that we're over there marketing and talking about, and we want Illinois farmers to feel like they're in the room. We also, share how ISA works and supports other organizations and locations through those market development efforts. And so it's really kind of showing all the different touch points and relationships that we've got in this industry. We plan to identify what relations are important at that location for ISA, and then talk about what we're doing to maintain those as it relates to the export of US soy. And then lastly, we really hope to continually to expand this interactive trade and export map that Eileen showed at the beginning of this webinar. We want to continue to add more layers of storytelling there. We want to add more stops around the world on that globe. We want at some point farmers to be able to get there and really feel like they have a very global feel in a very short snippet of time on tracking that journey of their Illinois soybeans and all of the different customers and all of the diverse markets that their soybeans are feeding. And so that's something that we hope to continue to do in the next fiscal year and beyond, is just to continue to build out that interactive trade and export story and make that real for the Illinois farmer. We think the in-person learning opportunities with trade and exports is also something that we can build upon and expand. And so one thing that we're going to be doing this upcoming fall is we're going to meet farmers where they're at. And so Eileen and I are really excited to provide some trade and export and check off messaging and materials back to farmers at the elevator locations where they're dropping off grain. And so that's just one more way that we're hoping to get trade and export communications in the hands of Illinois farmers, is by meeting them where they're at. Okay. We'll continue to share regular updates across all of our channels on the different trade and export work that we've got, and what those trade missions and the different programming we have, what that means to Illinois' 43,000 soybean farmers, and why those investments are so important to their own success. And we'll continue to reinforce the impact. And so taking the time to expand core events and initiatives, share those in-depth recaps when we can, thinking of different ways that we can continue to tell the story in new and innovative ways, meet farmers where they're at. Maybe that's through local market reports, even on ag radio, or at the grain elevator, or in pages of Illinois Field and Bean, or postcards in their mailbox. We're continually thinking about new ways to tell this story and to get that messaging out to Illinois farmers in a way that's really usable. Okay. Okay. Next slide, Eileen. All right, can you hear me now, Eileen? I got internet connectivity warnings on mine too.
Do you see my screen?
I do.
Okay, great. It seems we're having some connectivity up here. So
Okay.
if this is the right slide, Rachel?
Go back one. And I'll see. Yes, okay, you had it right. Go back to outcomes. Okay. Sorry about that. I hope you guys didn't lose me for too long. But why, at the end of the day, why is it so important that we're doing all of these different things and pulling all of these different levers to tell this story? And it's because, there's an outcome that we want. And it's because we want Illinois soybean farmers to be more aware of who their international buyers are. Where are their soybeans going? And what markets are they feeding? And why is that important? And what are those things that make them keep coming back to US and Illinois for those soybean needs? And we want Illinois farmers to be able to list those things, to name those things, and to have a relationship with the buyers that they've got around the globe. And so that's really important for us, is that they feel like they're invested in that story just as much as their checkoff dollars are. We hope that we get stronger farmer support for ISA as an organization when they see the good that their checkoff investments are doing with this market development and trade and export work. And then two, we want farmers to want to participate. We want farmers to want to host trade teams. When we have buyers come to the United States and to Illinois, we want them to be able to, have a vested interest in being able to tell their farm story, and to be able to participate in that, but then to also buy into the things that make us such a great product that global customers want to buy, whether that's sustainable production practices, or, talking about the different competitive advantages we have from a logistical standpoint, and just the way that we're able to produce soybeans here in Illinois and the part that the farmer plays in that. And so that's something that's really important too, is that Illinois farmers want to be on the other side of that equation, and have those interactions and their own relationships built with their global customers. All right. So here's my contact information. So if you ever need to reach out to me in particular, as I said, I know we've got some media on this call. We've got a ton of great resources and a ton of great stories. And we've got a lot more in the hopper, and more exciting things to come. Particularly, as we look to this summer, Eileen and her team will be hosting a lot of these buyers here in country and in state. And we're really excited about that. So there's more to come. So reach out to our communications team at any time if there's any kind of storytelling element that we can help get back out to your readers and to our farmer audiences. Stay tuned to all the different channels that we've got. If there's an opportunity that you think that we can reach you in a different space, let's consider it. So please use my contact information to reach out and send me your ideas at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for giving that great high-level overview of what our plans are here coming in the trade space. But as we've all mentioned, we're not done yet, and we're really excited to continue expanding in this space. With that, we will move on to our next speaker. We are happy to have with us today Lindsey Erb, who is the Director of Industry Relations with USSEC. And USSEC is a huge partner of ours as we discuss trade and outreach to our global partners. We cannot do it without them. And of course, Lindsey, as the Industry Relations Director, is kind of our gateway into that resource. And so we're really happy to hear her thoughts on trade and exports today. So Lindsey, I'll let you take over the floor.
Great. Thanks, Eileen. And we can kind of go right into the first slide. Sorry, next one. So as Eileen said, my name is Lindsey Urban. I'm the Director of Industry Relations for USSEC. I essentially have what I would say is probably the best job at USSEC, because I spend most of my time talking to all the people you see on the screen. And one thing, the reason I put this up is not necessarily to show this group who the members of USSEC are. What I think is more important about this slide is that it represents what we kind of see as our whole US value chain. And that combination of insights, I mean, frankly, even just a SWOT analysis is unique, one in kind of our association world, and is incredibly helpful because USSEC is looking to represent kind of the whole value chain when we're out in the international marketplace. And so having access to and basically getting paid to talk to folks from all along this value chain, including, of course, Illinois soy every day, it's a unique and important gateway into what is really going on here at home and how that is so critical to your customers, our customers around the world. So I popped this up because I think it is important to see that if you kind of look, you can pick it apart. You can see everything from the technology providers, certainly our growers throughout the US. You can move into even, container terminals, river elevators, the railroads. You can move it down the river as your map does. And you can, or out the PNW, out the East Coast, we have represented. And then of course, we have a lot of the Gulf exports represented. And so this, I think, is a really great way to look at kind of the diverse nature of USSEC's membership and how that truly does inform our programs and our priorities and our opportunities around the world. The next slide I wanted to highlight our strategic plan. And I will say, so I was just thinking, how long have I been in the workforce? So I have worked across a few industries for about 20 years. And I'll really hand it to somebody. I can take little to no credit for it. But this is one of the best strategic plans as an employee that I've ever really had the opportunity to work under. One, because I can remember it. Strategic plans can be kind of hard to synthesize down into something easy enough for everybody to kind of follow and remember, but two, because of the way it's incorporated into USSEC's broader strategy. And that is that essentially every program that we do around the world must and does quite technically and theoretically roll up into one of these three strategic goals: differentiating US soy, kind of elevating the preference or attaining market access for US soy and US soy products, soy oil, meal, all of the specialty beans and specialty products. So I say this because I think it's a very palatable strategic plan. I think it's important, even when we have buying teams coming from overseas, we have an awful lot. I think we had 7 teams in Illinois in 2022 to be able to, as a group, as a collective, our whole US value chain, kind of speak to these 3 strategic goals. And I think certainly Illinois soy and Illinois soybean farmers deliver on all 3 of those kind of throughout the year. And like I said, it's on my desk. The only strategic plan that we have is a placemat, essentially, that's on my desk. And I think it's a really good kind of yellow brick road, so to speak. So I'd like to put that out there because I think it's really helpful when we kind of continue to guide our programming and our thought leadership throughout the world. So our strategic plan. The next slide, because we talk all about regions, you said we're always referencing the region. Actually, it's rare sometimes that we get into the individual countries. In regions, it's not really a proper noun. And I need to remember that. So I wanted to highlight it for folks. So how USSEC would define the regions is kind of as you see here. And so I always like to make that available because I forget that just because it's part of my everyday doesn't mean that it's part of everybody's everyday. And maybe ISA puts, some different folks in different categories. So I wanted to put that up. So when I'm referencing it, or as we're talking throughout your panel, kind of when we're talking about regions, this is how we do sort them. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight on the next slide, some of the top destinations. And I don't think that any of these will come as a surprise to any of you. And these are actually our 21-22 marketing year destinations. I'm about 2 weeks away from getting a new graphic from our team. And this is somewhat unique and I think really handy in that it does kind of like a soybean equivalent. So it's calculating exports of whole beans, meal, and soybean oil. So you're kind of looking at that across kind of multiple platforms. But as you already identified, I think Scott had mentioned it, clearly our #1 market is China. And if you really look at the numbers, it's almost astounding just how much bigger that #1 market is. But as ISA is doing, USSEC is putting an incredible amount of effort into diversifying our markets and your markets around the world. Of course, next is Mexico. We do calculate the European Union as a block. So you're talking about all EU countries. And then as I think Rachel had mentioned, Egypt is right up there. And you can see it's skyrocketed over the past several marketing years, up 178% in the 2021 marketing year. So these are some of our top markets for that 2021. I venture to guess that when we look at this 5 years from now, we'll see some changes. We know that the industry is going through, quite a few changes, and that we expect to be seeing more exportable supply of US crushed soybean meal available. But of course, recognize that whole beans are also always going to be a major play in the export market. And so USSEC is going to work to maintain our markets for that around the world, as well as expanding into meal and other opportunities. So just wanted to splash that up there so that we had some background for the questions that you sent, Eileen.
Thank you, Lindsey, for all that context. And like I mentioned before, and Lindsey kind of alluded to, USSEC has staff in all of those regions and boots on the ground, and we really couldn't do that work without them. At the end of the day, the priority here at Illinois Soy is to grow the demand for consumption and usage of Illinois soybeans. And so we're really thankful for the work being done from the USSEC staff. And so here on the screen, you'll see Lindsey's contact information, and not so sure, maybe she wants me to share that with everyone publicly, but she's a wonderful resource. If you ever do have questions, feel free to reach out to us. And I really encourage you to visit their website as well. That has a lot of useful information as well. And so we'll go ahead and get moving on into the question section. And I'd like to remind everyone to please drop their chats or their questions into the chat box if you do have any questions. But I know I've come up with some questions here myself that I will go ahead and let the opportunity for each one of you panelists to answer. So in whatever order that you would like. So we talked a lot about the different market opportunities and the key to diversifying that market. And so what market are you most excited about growing here in the next 5 years as we look forward?
I'm happy to just kind of share my thoughts. And you said 5 years, so then I have to maybe take a country out. So I think in markets that I've looked closely at and that USSEC is looking closely at, I think we've identified there may be slightly more long-term, because I want to include one that I think is important. And I know that Illinois has kind of been leaders in looking at longer term investment as well. So I would certainly suggest Bangladesh would be on the top of that list. Indonesia, for a similar reason. You're talking about a country that essentially is continuing to add population. There's an opportunity for kind of expansion of the current rate of protein consumption, which then will lead to an expansion of opportunities for soybeans. I think for both of those two reasons, those are significant opportunities. There's not always a freight advantage into particularly Bangladesh, but there is an opportunity for the US's unique supply chain, and that we've got, all sorts of, whether you need containers, you need bulk. The US is uniquely positioned to deliver consistently, and even when the logistics can be tricky. So those are great opportunities. I would say for that same reason, India is a long-term investment opportunity, but one you just can't ignore. I think, did they just announce it, or it's supposed to be, if it hasn't been announced already, it's supposed to happen in the next weeks or months or days, that India will be the most populated country in the world. We all know that. I haven't seen the latest stat on when it is actually going to become the world's largest economy. And I think that there's an incredible opportunity for US soy in India. There are market access issues. I mean, they kind of abound, frankly. But that is not a reason to stop pushing in such a natural market. So I think India is another incredible market opportunity. I would put those kind of really quite high on the list. I would suggest Egypt and Colombia are also ripe for expansion. They are natural markets for the US in that we have, there are socioeconomic opportunities in those countries, and the US has an opportunity. We work quite well into those markets, kind of market access wise. And so those are two markets that are kind of ripe for opportunities to kind of build out our exports. So I would say, if I was just kind of picking 5 markets, those are 5 great markets. Some longer term, I think India is certainly a longer term investment, but one that simply can't be ignored.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting, because that's one of the things we've been looking at too as a committee, or what are the opportunities moving forward. And Lindsey hit exactly the 4 on the head that we had at our list too. And I think for us, just recently coming back from Egypt and Colombia, both, we're very excited just about the opportunities that have grown exponentially there, especially in Egypt. And I think it has a lot to do with Lindsey's group through the Soy Excellence Centers, and just help educating the people on the benefits of U.S. soybeans. So we can't underestimate the value that brings to us. And when we, as farmers, look at our checkoff dollars and how we have a return on those dollars, we're really happy to say that USSEC is one of those entities that has really been tremendous in helping us ensure that we get a big return on our dollars. I've seen that it may not be immediate, but we see it coming back. We sent a delegation over to India, I think a little over 3 years ago, because we know that that is a market that at some point in time we want to penetrate, but it is going to be a challenge to do. But just like with great challenges, there could be a great reward if we can really penetrate that market. So we look forward to that opportunity. And with USSEC's help, we hopefully can do that. So thanks for your insight on that.
And I'll just wrap up that conversation by kind of mentioning what Scott had said as a precursor to some information that I'm sure you will all be seeing here in the near future. Illinois Soybean Association working strategically to know what markets to focus on. And as we head into the fiscal year FY24, where we can be working and focusing our investments to really uplift those different regions, such as the Soy Excellence Centers or different avenues in education and promotion. So really happy to see that all of our different opportunities seem to be aligning in those different markets. So another question that I am asking, Lindsey, you kind of mentioned that an obstacle we might face could be market access. And that's something that obviously we have a lot of team members here in the state of Illinois working on our government relation team as we discuss flyouts and speaking with our leadership here in the United States and also on the ASA side. But on our checkoff side, what are some of the biggest hurdles that we are going to be facing in the market access or in the trade and export industry here in the future?
So I think I had our CEO, Jim Sutter, kind of puts it the simplest, which is what I like. So, because I can remember it. So he kind of references often the 4 C's, and I'll give you the C's and then I'll kind of explain where I see our market access issue, our opportunities, as someone else on our team likes to reference instead of challenges, they're opportunities. So the 4 C's that he uses are climate, currency, COVID, and conflict. And I think the big one I see in the short term for some particularly for existing markets, frankly, is climate. And when I think that, I'm rolling right into sustainability. And you know, maybe the closest one on my mind, it has been coming up a lot lately, which is the European Union's deforestation free file. So there's a lot, pretty much everything is still left to be kind of published on how that is going to be, you know, put into practice. But essentially that's a major market and a market that often exports its influence. You know, so Europe, what Europe kind of thinks and does and says doesn't necessarily always just stay in the EU. Sometimes their influence is exported into other markets. And so we want to make sure that US soy is positioned appropriately in that, because, you know, obviously we say it all the time, we don't have a deforestation problem. No, we don't. But now what we're also hearing on top of this deforestation, you know, free file is challenges to whether or not the US is consistently converting grassland. And those are opportunities to kind of set the record straight and clearly identify all of the efforts that US growers and the US value chain has put into indeed operating in an even more sustainable way. And so that's kind of climate. Conflict, you know, one of the clear things that you saw, everybody saw in the markets, and we kind of continue to see veg oils spike and then come down. That is in part related to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So that is a major contributor to some of the volatility we've seen. Do they grow a lot of soybeans? No. And export a lot of soybeans, but they export a lot of veg oils. And that, because we're working in one giant market, everything that happens in a far corner, you know, of the globe, or everything that happens on Scott's farm does kind of come full circle. And it really is. I do think that US farmers are some of the most global businessmen and women I've ever worked with. And I worked in the financial markets before I worked in ag. And I would say for sure, some of the most global businessmen and women kind of around, in that things that we do here at home and things that happen in far-flung corners of the globe absolutely do affect each other. And so obviously conflict, of course, currency, I think we had a conversation with this. I get the chance, Illinois the team here invites us. We have a kind of a monthly staff meeting, and I get invited, which I do appreciate, because we don't always get a lot of time to just talk as a team, and you're not at a big conference. So I think we had mentioned that a couple of months ago, Eileen, about some issues in Egypt with access to US dollars. Obviously, almost all contracts are traded in US dollars. So that will continue to be a challenge. And I think that in the coming year, we're going to continue to see that precipitate as we, peter in and out of, are we going to head toward a global recession? Are we not? Those contracts are all traded in US dollars. So the ability to access those, work in those is can be challenging. And then of course, COVID, and all the things, frankly, that the kind of ripple effects that COVID has had. Everything, we were talking about for a long time, the container supply. I know Illinois exporters and Illinois farmers then were challenged tremendously by the lack of containers in Illinois, chassis in Ohio. Then the rail doesn't want to double stack, or they don't want to fill containers because they want to be able to double stack and run it to the coast. And so it kind of, all of these little things absolutely do affect our and Illinois soy farmers' lives. So I think that most of our market access issues can kind of be rolled into those 4 C's. We certainly have trade irritants, I think we like to call them, and their phytosanitary issues, certain issues with different weed seeds or residue levels, things like that. And I think that, USSEC is very much on top of that. We work tremendously closely with our, value chain here at home and the importers, whether it's a grain and feed association in Egypt or a crushing association or a group in Colombia. I think that those are all ways in which we're able to kind of clearly identify these trade irritants and work to kind of solve them. So those are, some of the market access issues that are close to home. And I think this next year we'll see potentially, some additional opportunities in those areas, but those are kind of the top of mind for me.
Thank you, Lindsey. I'm not sure if anyone else has anything to add, but I'm definitely going to take those 4 C's back with me, and hopefully we can eliminate one of those C's here in the coming future. But definitely the benefit of going on a lot of our trade missions and hosting trade teams here in the United States is hearing the obstacles and the issues that our partners are having in these different regions, and just the importance of those relationships that we're constantly building all around the globe, in connection with USSEC and our other trade partners. So looking forward to another year of opportunities and growing the demand here in the United States. So with that, Scott, do you have anything to add to that?
I totally agree with what Lindsey said, and I think I really like the analogies that she and Jim Sutter use with that. I think one of the things we, as with the checkoff, we have to make sure that we also are doing is educating and advocating. So in that, it's just ensuring that our members are aware of all that we are doing by educating them on these things. And you're doing a great job with your map and your interactive ability of doing that. And so is USSEC, just providing all the tools that they have. And then ensuring that we're advocating for instance, sustainability. When we were in Egypt, one of the buyers that we were talking to told us that the reason we buy 100% of our soybeans from US is because you guys are sustainable. You're not deforesting anything. And so we made a commitment to buy it from you. And so that's been part of our educational process, and then advocating of what we are actually doing as farmers that's good for the environment, good for the air, good for the water. We have to make sure that we as farmers are doing that. And as this association, this is one of our responsibilities that we're trying to ensure, is that we can advocate on your behalf to our customers of all the great things that you as farmers are doing. So thank you for doing that, you farmers.
And if I could just, because it's it's pretty important, and I think somewhat unique in the climate or sustainability realm, is that oftentimes customers, they don't necessarily, it's not that USSEC isn't a trusted advisor to them, but it's good for them to hear that directly from the growers themselves. It really is. And I think that in sustainability, and Rachel would have more insight because this is very much more her area of expertise. But, you know, when you're talking about marketing and kind of positioning, and we want to position not as corporate farms that are, you know, chasing profit. You've all heard that probably more than me, but positioning as family farms that nobody cares more about the sustainability of Scott's land than Scott's family, you know? And so I think that message resonates more when you're able to hear it directly, you know, from the grower themselves. And so I do think that certainly USSEC has an opportunity to kind of better arm our grower leaders to kind of really hammer home on that, because this is continuing. This isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's becoming more and more. I mean, it's a louder and louder voice in the room. Sustainability, deforestation free. I almost think that in a way we're hearing less about GM because it's what's being backfilled is sustainability. So I think that there's an opportunity certainly from USSEC's position to arm our grower leaders even better to kind of be the voice for that.
Thanks, Lindsey. And I'm sure that Rachel has a lot of comments that she can go on and on about making sure that those farmers are sharing the story of what they're doing on their farms. And I know that from my experience speaking with our international partners, buyers, traders, consumers alike, they find farmers kind of the star of the show. When we were in Egypt, I know that they were overjoyed to be sitting at a table with an Illinois soybean farmer. So they really are quite the celebrities in these different markets, and for good reason, because the product they're growing is a great quality and consistent product for a lot of our buyers globally. So with that, it seems that we're getting very close to time. So if there's any last minute questions, I'll let those trickle in. But if not, I will go ahead and wrap up here quickly. So if there is anything that you all see in the future for on your farm sharing stories, or you would like to host a trade visit, or just learning how you can get more involved, I'd love to have a conversation with you on behalf of the Illinois Soybean Association. And please refer back to our website for any of these the interactive map and the buyer's guides as you are doing boots on the ground work in your community. So we're happy that we were able to share this program with you today. And this webinar was recorded, so you'll find that on YouTube shortly after on our YouTube page as well. And so thank you all, and I hope that you all have a great end of your Tuesday and happy Valentine's Day. So thank you very much, presenters, and thank you everyone for participating today.